Welcome to Horror Year, where every story is a journey into the unknown. If you're brave enough to face your darkest fears and uncover the most chilling tales, you've come to the right place. So, dim the lights, turn up the volume, and subscribe to Horror Year. Your journey into terror begins now. Urban exploration can be thrilling, a journey into forgotten places where history and mystery intertwine. For some, the lure of abandoned buildings and hidden locations is impossible to resist. Max, Jenna, and Leo were among those who craved the excitement of uncovering the secrets buried in the shadows. But as they ventured into the depths of the long-abandoned Blackwell Institute, they discovered that some places hold horrors beyond imagination. This is their story, a tale of curiosity, fear, and the unknown, where the boundaries between reality and nightmare blur. Max, Jenna, and Leo have always been enthralled with the idea of urban adventure. They couldn't resist the excitement of finding hidden locations, the rush of breaking into deserted buildings, and the spooky beauty of crumbling architecture. Nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to discover, despite the many nights they had spent preparing their next journey. Jenna came into an old forum thread one evening concerning a shuttered asylum outside of a local city. The message caught their attention despite being confusing, riddled with cautions and odd symbols. The Blackwell Institute Asylum was closed in the 1970s, following a string of horrific incidents for which there was never a satisfactory explanation. Locals avoided it due to rumors of cruel experiments, strange disappearances, and an evil ghost. But it was the biggest test for Max, Jenna, and Leo. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and an internet map, they went out late at night. The long drive was tinged with anxious expectation. When they eventually arrived at the asylum, it was grand, menacing, and completely dark, everything they had ever dreamed of. The structure towered over them like a hideous shadow, its broken windows casting a soulless, lifeless stare. The creaking of the doors reverberated through the deserted halls as they pushed their way through the rusting gates and inside the asylum. There was a strong smell of rot and decay inside. There was paint peeling off the walls and garbage all over the floors. The only sound in the deafening silence was the sporadic trickle of water from the ceiling. Even with the uneasiness that descended upon them, they continued, going from room to room. They discovered rusting gurneys, crumpled patient files, and outdated medical equipment. However, something didn't feel quite right. The edifice appeared to be observing them and perhaps anticipating something. They discovered a locked door bearing the words, "Restricted Area," inscribed in large red letters as they continued exploring the asylum. Leo pushed on breaking in, ever the risk-taker. After a few hard kicks, the door came way, revealing a long, dim hallway that went to the asylum's lowest levels. As they descended the stairs, the air got colder, and the beams from their flashlights seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. None of them could figure out the weird, enigmatic markings that studded the walls. With each step, Jenna's fear increased, but Max and Leo persisted because they were determined to learn the asylum's secrets. They came to a massive steel door at the end of the passageway. Max paused, letting his palm linger over the grip. "Are we sure about this?" he questioned, seeming uncertain. Leo laughed. "Come on, we didn't come this far to back out now." He pulled the door open by grabbing the handle. They were sickened by the putrid mixture of filth and rot that made them gag. They discovered a sizable, poorly lit space with rows of cages within. Tatter set, dirty sheets encased something, or someone, inside each cage. Jenna fell back, her lantern clattering to the floor, the image so terrifying. Max pushed himself to take a step forward, his heart racing. He pulled the corner of one of the covers, exposing the lifeless body of a person with a horrified expression on their face. Even though the bones were old, the terror inscribed on them was still very much present, as though the cause of these deaths was something much more terrible than death itself. Just then, a chilly wind blew through the room, blowing out their flashlights. The silence was broken by a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once, and the blackness was complete. The growl became closer and louder, making them seem as though something was circling them in the dark. Panic ensued. "Let's get out of here." Jenna let out a scream, But as they turned to go, the door vanished. It appeared as though the room moved, with the walls enclosing them. They were imprisoned, and the low, mocking voices that surrounded their roaring had given way to murmurs. Max reached for his flashlight and turned it on, but the light revealed something that chilled his blood. There stood a tall, emaciated figure in the center of the room, his sunken eyes burning with a dark glow. Its lips was twisted into a hideous grimace, and its skin was stretched taut over its bones. The whispers grew into screams, pained, agonizing screams that rang off the walls as the apparition raised a bony hand and pointed squarely at them. Max, Jenna, and Leo attempted to sprint, but an invisible force made their legs feel heavy like lead. With footsteps that echoed like a clock ticking down the final seconds of their lives, the figure moved closer. The stench of death filled the air as it stretched out to them, causing their vision to become blurry. Their own screams mixing with the voices of the damned was the last thing they heard before everything turned black. The asylum was deserted when the police came the following morning, having been notified by nearby residents who had heard the screams throughout the night. The 3 explorers were nowhere to be found, the cages had vanished, and the rooms were deserted. The only thing that remained of them was the one camera that was in the middle of the space where they had disappeared. The camera captured a short clip, less than a minute, that was jam-packed with static. However, in the last moments before the screen blacked out, the figure was visible, standing in the shadows and looking straight into the camera with its soulless eyes. The asylum is still deserted, but nobody is brave enough to approach it. With every year that goes by, the myth surrounding Blackwell Institute intensifies due to Max, Jenna, and Leo's disappearance. Some claim that the asylum is still there, just waiting for the next group of adventurers to discover its mysteries. But heed this warning. Not all adventures end well, and some locations are lost for good reason. Remember this tale the next time you're drawn to an abandoned building or the excitement of exploring something new, and give it some serious thought before entering. Perhaps the dark is also waiting for you.